The following program does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised.
Let's ride, heading up 35. One way, we're headed at 90K. We'll over the two-lane causeway. We'll go left, it's gonna be a classy day. Kickstands down, head on over to the band stage. Kick back and listen to the band play. Whoa, whoa, let's take a ride today. Whoa, whoa, across the causeway. Day. Whoa, the classy chassis way.
Good evening and welcome to this House of Musicians with your host, singer, songwriter, and founder of the band, Inner City Outlaws, the Baritone Bear, Barry Smith, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board right now, send us an email. Our email addresses are thisHouseofMusicians@gmail.com or instudio101@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your host of this House of Musicians, Barry Smith.
Hey, welcome, good listeners, to this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101. We hope you enjoy the next hour with us as we do our small part to help promote musicians, bands, and venues. Gary, our guest tonight, doesn't need any promotion whatsoever.
I know. I mean, I had to take a hot shower, man. I mean, amazing musician. And it just, the way, I'm not going to say the name yet in case people just tuning in don't know who you're talking about. But the music that this man has been involved with since I followed music, way back in the 80s. And the commercial ability, the hit songs, unbelievable. Go ahead, Barry. Who is our guest tonight?
Well, let me tell you, with saying that, I've been listening to him since I was probably in my teens, and lo and behold, I have him on the show, so I'm stoked. Folks, we have Mr. Paul Dean, guitarist and co-founder of the band Loverboy, on the show tonight, and what an honor and a treat. Paul, how are you this evening?
I'm a little pissed off, actually. You just said that you listened to me when you were a teenager. Come on!
Sorry about that, Paul.
I have to say, he's a teenager, but Paul, I was obviously in my 20s, so that was great, though.
Yeah, well, I was in my 30s, so
yeah.
And if you add that all up from 40 years ago, that puts me in my. Never mind.
Well, Paul, what can I say? An absolute honor to have you on the show. Talked to you a few times on the phone. You're an absolute gentleman. Paul, let's start right at the beginning. I'm interested to know how you were influenced by music when you were younger. Was it your parents? Was it your older brother? Was it one of your older brother's albums? How you were influenced by music and who it was that you were influenced by?
We had one radio station where I lived in the mountains of British Columbia, and it was a repeater station from Calgary, and they had this repeater. It was I guess probably a gas operated repeater halfway up the mountain across the lake from where we were, and they relayed so I guess that was the only place in the valley where I lived where they could actually get reception, and then they would beam it all down the valley. And we had one station, and I don't know, or I should say one TV station. So I was influenced a lot by, they had a lot of, I wish I could remember the name of the shows, but out of Calgary, they had a lot of music hop kind of things, in the afternoon, but every Saturday afternoon. So I would be tuning into that. But luckily, when the diesel or gas powered repeater station would go down, we would have no TV in the whole valley because the one station would turn into snow. There'd be snow everywhere. But luckily I was able to receive one radio station out of Spokane. It was a country station, but so my first influences were with Johnny Cash. Was a big fan of his, and Luther Perkins, his guitar player. And Luther he had this style of dong, ticka dong, ticka dong, ticka dong, and that really grabbed me, and so that's kind of stuck with me forever, And that's, you take a sped up version of dun da 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 dun da 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 da, and there's the beginning of that little thing that I do and working for the weekend, and the galloping part in The Kid Is Hot. So those were my big influences. And another one, a great influence was Dwayne Eddy as a guitar player, the Twang King. I've really got back to that sound. I play that sound all the time in sound checks, and the guys in the band, they put up with me. I guess they're probably laughing inside, but they stay respectful outwardly anyway. But that's my two biggest influences, and we're talking way back. We're talking early '60s, right?
Absolutely. Before kind of any of the heavy rock was, that it just started in the late '60s. The heavy stuff, I believe.
Well, another big influence was Elvis too. I remember in 1956, I was 10. So, and most people, or I don't know, a lot of people are just starting to tune into music. 9, 10, 11. And when I heard Heartbreak Hotel, or maybe it was Hound Dog, one of those, and that really grabbed me too. So that was a big influence. And also the Everly Brothers, when they came out right around that time, a little after that, and I was very influenced by the Everly Brothers. If you listen, if you're tuned into Mike's and my harmonies, there's a lot of that influence, a lot of that two-part, really tight two-part harmony. And that's kind of where I come from.
Absolutely. And the funny thing, you mentioned Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog, back in the day, I guess when you were listening to that and your folks were going, what is this devilish stuff? I guess that was kind of like the heavy hardcore metal today, like back then, the Hound Dog and the Heartbreak Hotel, because it was just, so obscure compared to what was playing at the time.
Yeah. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. That was a big hit in those days, right? And then it took a big left turn with Bill Haley and Comets with Rock Around the Clock and all this stuff that came out earlier. And I'm sure that shook up a lot of parents, probably like rap does today. I don't know.
Yep. Rap or some of that heavy metal that you can not really understand what they're saying when they're singing. It's just so low and whatnot. Exactly. Yeah. And Paul, tell me about this now. When you were 12, you started playing a wash tub bass. How did that come about?
I have, there must have been somebody else had one, and my parents owned a resort, and I lived there for 10 years, in the mountains of BC. And the thing is, every Saturday we would have a campfire sing-along thing, and that was in the era of folk music, Michael Row Your Boat Ashore and songs like that. And I guess somebody must have showed up at one of the sing songs and had this, and what it is, it's a wash tub base. It's about 3 feet or 2.5 feet across, and it's where you would wash your clothes. If you didn't have a washing machine, that's where you would wash your clothes. And so you flip it over on, so the shiny side's up, and you drill a hole in the middle of it, and you tie it. Because we lived on a lake, we had water skiing was the big thing in the summer. As I say, we owned a resort. We had 16 cabins and places for 100 campers to come and park for however long, 1 or 2 weeks in the summer. And one of the guests showed me how to do it. Well, I didn't take much showing. It's pretty obvious. So anyway, so with the water skiing thing, we had tow ropes, nylon tow ropes. So you tie a knot in it, and you'd stick it up from the bottom. Remember, it's turned upside down. So you stick it up from the big opening up to the shiny side, and then on the top of that, you tie it to the top of tie it around a broom handle, and then you stick the broom handle on the rim. If you can imagine, there's a rim that goes around the wash tub, and when you pull on it, the note goes higher, and when you slacken it off, it goes lower. So it would sound like this: boom, 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 boom. It's like a bass. So we called it a wash tub bass. So that was my first axe. And trying to get it in tune and play the notes in tune. Who knows where that would be, But it was a fun thing. It was my first instrument. And
amazing.
Shortly after that, one of the other guests, he had a ukulele. He brought a ukulele up, and I was fascinated by this thing. And I don't know. I guess he was playing it on his porch on one of the cabins or something. And maybe because my job was to carry we had wood stoves in all the cabins, and I was on garbage detail. I would pick up all the garbage in the cabins and supply them with kindling and paper and wood for their wood stoves.
Cool.
Pretty woodsy stuff, but it was on a beautiful location on a lake on Lake Windermere.
Wow.
And it was great. But anyway, I guess he was playing a ukulele, probably sitting on his porch, and I was maybe out there one morning doing my chores. And what is that thing? I'd never seen it before, so I got to know the guy. He also had a ski boat that he would take me water skiing all the time. So we were pretty tight. So I didn't have any qualms going up to him and say, can I try that out? And so he said I had an afternoon off from the chores, and I asked him. I said, "Would you mind if I sat in your cabin here and played the ukulele for a while?" He said, "Yeah, no problem." So I started playing it, and I figured out how to tune it. My dog has fleas. The tuning is the weirdest tuning ever, but I figured it out, and then I got a couple of guitar books and learned how to play. The first song I ever learned how to play was "Oh My Darling Clementine," because there's 2 chords. Oh my darling, da 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 da, change the chord, da 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 da, change the chord, da 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 da, change the chord. And so that was my auspicious beginning, I guess.
Absolutely amazing. Going back to the washtub bass, let's face it too. Back in that day, there wasn't a gazillion Gibson Les Pauls or even Fender Squiers that you could pick up for $200 or $300 like you can nowadays. And geez, who had even $23 to buy a guitar back then was like $1,000 now. So people got, they got. Excuse me, people got figured out a way to make instruments and stuff like that back in that day.
That's funny you say that, because I was playing at these campfire thing for probably a year. I think I probably started when I was 15, or I'd learned enough on guitar. I had my own guitar. I bought a guitar from the catalog. It's a Silvertone with a little Silvertone amp,
cool.
And and I was playing that around the campfire, and I guess the word got out there was one band in the valley where I lived, and the word got out. So at 16, when I just turned 16, they asked me if I would play in the band, but they said, well, we want you to play bass. I went, well, that's fine. That's great. So my first gig was 40 miles away, way down the Columbia Valley, in a little town called Canal Flat. And we set up in the community center and we did our show. And I guess we probably had 3 or 4 rehearsals before that. I played bass, and I played guitar in a couple of tunes. I think I played the guitar player's guitar, and he played trumpet in one track or one cut, 1 or 2 songs. So I was playing bass, and I think I might have played sax in one track too, because I learned how to play sax at school in a high school band thing. And but when you say nobody was making instruments, the instrument that I played was a bass that the guy made, the band leader. He made the bass, and he made the bass amp. He took a jukebox apart and took all the guts out of it and built a little box for the speaker, and you stick the amp guts on top of the speaker. And that was my rig. I was playing a homemade rig that the leader built.
That's amazing, bud. And so now, when I was 12 or 13, I remember being in Newfoundland at my grandfather's house, and there was this wooden Coca-Cola box. And I didn't know you could bring it to the store and get 50 cents for it. And I smashed it all up for fun or whatever. And then I was really upset when my grandfather told me, you could have brought that down to the store and got $1 or something for it. But I'm bringing this up because I want to know if you did this on purpose or if you were kicking your butt after when you actually got your first guitar when you were 13. Excuse me, an acoustic guitar when you were 13, but you smashed it playing badminton.
It was my 14th birthday. I got that. Yeah. And I did. I smashed it, and it was time to move on. And I was feeling Pete Townsend-ish, I guess, and Jimi Hendrixy. And of course, it was long before their time, but or before we knew of them. They were all around at that time, but long before I knew them. And I don't know why. I guess it was more like, why not? Who knows what I was thinking? But I mean, I had my electric guitar and I had my amp. I probably was working on my 2nd or 3rd electric guitar by then. I didn't need it, and who knows what a 14-year-old kid is thinking,
Did you ever smash any guitars with Loverboy on stage?
Not with Loverboy, but I did with Street Heart.
Okay, yep, sure.
Yeah. Was it Street Heart? No, I'm sorry. No, it was. No, it was way before that. It was in 72. It was with a band.
Was it Cannonball?
Before Cannonball, we were called Canada. We were called the Fox. We changed our name to Canada. We had a couple of singles came out in 70-ish, somewhere around there. Uh-huh. And we were playing a gig, and the keyboard player would crash. He had a reverb unit in his Clyde Harvey in his organ, and he would crash his organ, and you'd get this kind of this thunder sound coming out of it, and the drummer would kick over his drums and at the end doing the big finale. And one night I had the notion, I'm going to smash my guitar. But I think I did. I think I was with Street Heart. So I've smashed 2 guitars on stage. Oh man, this is becoming a little bit of a habit here. I don't know.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
okay.
Just on the guitar that I broke with Street Heart is the same guitar that I'm playing, that I played all Turn Me Loose and Working for the Weekend. And the first 2 albums I played that guitar on, and I still have it and still play it a lot. And I rebuilt it. I built a new neck for the body. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
I just was going to say I had, before Street Heart, I was in this band, Great Canadian River Race, living in Edmonton, and I got to know a guy who owned a woodworking shop, and he gave me, unbelievable, he gave me full access to it, because I had taken shop in high school where I built a fretless bass in high school in grade 12. But so he gave me access to it, and I built myself a new neck. I fashioned it. It looks like a Telecaster neck, but it took me a while to put it together, but it still works. Still amazing.
That's amazing. Good for you. And now, when you broke this guitar in Street Heart, was it like at the end of a show and you were just, was it impulsive? Was it planned? Were you just, how did that happen?
I don't know. I can't put my brain in that same place. But all I remember, I wish I could remember that it's a little town just south of Toronto where we were playing it in this little dance hall. It had a really low stage, and I think probably the ceiling was made out of, soundboard, the really thin soundboard that a lot of people put on their ceilings just for sound. Mm-hmm. It cuts reflection sound. So I think that's what it was. All I remember was I put my guitar through the ceiling. and then I guess it's hanging in the ceiling, and Matt would probably have a better picture of it because we were in that band together, and he was sitting behind me probably watching this insanity unfold. But I guess I pulled it out of the ceiling and proceeded to smash it, and I don't know. The timeline. I'm a little confused to the timeline. I don't know if it was Scrubble O'Kane where I broke it, or if it was probably Scrubble. I've been in Loverboy is my 14th band, so they kind of run together a little bit.
Right. Well, we were touching on Street Heart for a bit. I know you met Matt Frenette and joined, and you guys joined Street Heart in Regina. I want to play a Loverboy song so we can touch on that and talk about Loverboy. But let's just Street Heart. What another amazing band! I mean, Canadian band. So you were in two amazing bands. But how did Street Heart come to be?
Well, Street Heart was actually two bands. It was Witness, I guess, or Witness Incorporated. I don't know if they used the Incorporated, but that had Spider, our current bass player, Ken C, and Daryl Guttal and Kenny Shields from that band. And Matt and I went down and saw them when they were playing in Edmonton. I was living in Edmonton playing with Matt with the Great Canadian River Race. And we went down and we were blown away. We went, this is what we should be doing. This is the kind of band we should be in.
Cool.
And that's kind of as far as it went. And I don't even know if we actually met the other two guys in the band, but all I remember is like one early morning, or I guess it's probably more like a late night. It was, I don't know, something like 5 o'clock in the morning. And where was I living? Who knows? Probably in Vancouver.
Party.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like a rock star.
Yeah. Oh, no, of course. I was living in Edmonton. What am I saying? Yeah. So Kenny phoned me. He says, Paul, you want to make a band? And I went, yes. And that was it. It was like, I think probably within the next couple of days after Matt and I tied up any loose ends in Edmonton, we shipped off to Regina. We got an apartment there, and put together this band. We rehearsed for 3 months in the dead of Regina winters. Talk about cold winters, but I mean, it was great. We had a great time. We wrote a lot of songs, and we were really intense. A lot of jamming. I always think of that band and as the Led Zeppelin of Canada. That's how I felt, just with the dynamics and the singing and just everything that we did it just felt like that, And it was too bad that band broke up, but that's c'est la vie,
Yeah, and they have some great music. There's no doubt about that. Why don't we, Paul, play a song? I want to play a Loverboy song here, and then come back and discuss your part and role in it. And then we'll start talking, we'll talk about Loverboy. And then I do have some emails coming in, so I'd like to read you some emails too. But let's go ahead and play this song, and then we'll talk about it when we come back. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Let her rip.
Awesome. Folks, I have Paul Dean, co-founder, guitar player for the band Loverboy. What an amazing guest to have on the show tonight. We're going to listen to a Loverboy song called Give Me Back My Life, and we'll come back and talk with Paul about the song, about the album it's on, and whatnot. Folks, I, again, have Paul Dean on this House of Musicians radio show tonight, right here on Reality Radio 101. welcome back, folks. I have the amazing Paul Dean, Loverboy fame, on the show with us this evening. And what a pleasure indeed it is. Paul, we just played Give Me Back My Life. I always loved Mike Reno's voice. Let's talk about, you had a couple of, I asked you to pick 2 songs to play on the air tonight, and this is one of the songs you picked, Give Me Back My Life. Out of all of the amazing Loverboy songs there are, I just want to know why you picked that one and what the significance is.
That tune was actually, Mike and I wrote it 20 years ago when my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he was 3 at the time, and it was pretty brutal. We had to chase him around the living room with needles like 3 or 4 times a day, giving him injections and finger pokes to check his blood sugar levels and that. And I was just imagining what it would be like, obviously not for a 3-year-old, but for a kid or anybody really, but mainly a young person who gets diagnosed with this disease and have their lives, plus the rest of their family's lives, change overnight, radically change. And there's just a lot of references in it to what I can imagine my son still goes through. You know, he's 25 now, and 26, so he goes through it every day, the same thing. But then I started listening to it. I just sort of revisited it a while back. And I started thinking, listen to the lyrics and go, wait a minute, this applies to 95% of the lyrics apply to the pandemic and everybody wanting to get their lives back.
Absolutely.
Me as much as anybody else want to get back and playing for our fans and the fans being able to safely go to rock concerts and just basically hang out with people, you know, instead of being locked away or a lot of people are, but a lot of people are. We're being very, very careful, especially old buggers like myself, you know. So,
well, what a great tribute! What a great tribute for your son. That's a great tune. Loverboy I just want to tell the folks out there, everybody knows who Loverboy is, but they've been going strong for 40 years. They were Loverboy, you and Mike and the boys still playing before the pandemic happened. And actually, you guys are up there with the Stones for longevity. I mean, and you guys have some gigs set up for possibly after when the pandemic. I think you had 40 gigs ready to go before the pandemic hit. Let's talk about kind of how Loverboy formed.
Okay. Well, shortly after after I left Streetheart, I'd kind of had it working with singers. I'd been working with so many different bands. Well, basically, I think 12 or 13 of those bands had singers in it. And the whole idea was the band supports the vocalist, you know, and musically. And so I was getting a little bit, discouraged. I had too many, never discouraged, but a little too many lumps from it, you know. And I decided, hell with it, I'm going out on my own. I'm going to, for better or for worse, like my singing or not, I'm going to be the singer from now on. So I started working on a solo album. But at the same time, I needed to work. So I reverted back to my early origins of a musician, and I got a gig in a power trio, and I was the bass player, and we were playing in Saskatoon. We had a bunch of shows up there, and we would go up there for a week at a time, and we'd rock out playing AC/DC covers and stuff like that. It was a blast. So anyway, we came back, and between gigs, and I was having a rehearsal, learning my bass parts, and then it's kind of gray, but I remember somehow that Mike came down to visit the guitar player who he was in a band with earlier. They were called Spunk out of Calgary. And this was in Calgary. And they were just jamming. Mike came down to say hi. And so I was in the other room because we had kind of two rooms going. I guess that was it. I had one for my my solo stuff, and then then there was a little extra room that we would learn the stuff for this cover band that we were doing. So anyway, Mike came down, and I guess I must have excused myself and went in the other room, and I was, tweaking my tunes, and I heard Mike sing, and I immediately caught my ear and went, "Oh wow, that voice! I've never heard a voice like that. What an incredible voice!" Just something about it just got right inside me, and I went, "Wow, it's just wow." So we started talking, and that day or that night, I invited Mike to come back the next day, just me and him, and see what would happen. See if he was interested, and maybe we could write some songs together. And he went, "Yeah, sure." So Mike, he could only come at night because in the daytime he was working construction in Calgary, and this was in January. So I guess he's wheeling gravel and cement up in a wheelbarrow. That was his gig. So he would do his 9 to 5s, and then he would go home, have dinner, and then come down. And that night we wrote "Always on My Mind," which made it to the first album, and one other track that was released a lot later, just like the movies. We wrote 2 songs that first night, and that was it. We just we hit it off right away at Songwriters, and we decided that we should try and ask Kenny Shields and say we should make a band. So we started rehearsing, and we got a bass player, and we auditioned drummers, tons of drummers. Actually, Bernie Aubin from the Headpins was our drummer for a little while. It didn't work out, but Bernie's a great drummer and a great friend. He actually he threw me the title of "The Kid Is Hot Tonight." He says, "Dean, I got this title for a song, The Kid Is Hot." I went, "That is a great title." And he didn't have anything else, but I had this other tune. Well, it was "The Kid Is Hot." It became "The Kid Is Hot." But if you could imagine, the song was complete without that part. "The Kid Is Hot Tonight, but where will he be tomorrow?" That didn't exist in the tune. So you could, in your mind, just edit that out. I thought that was a pretty good song, even without that part. But then I took that part and stuck it in and went, "Oh, I really like this now."
And what a huge song.
It turned out really well, yeah. And
huge.
Yeah. So that was, I had a record deal through Streetheart. It was a really strange deal. I was locked into it, and I had to get out of that deal before we could get another deal going. And Mike and I could start our own thing independent, like a fresh start. So we composed these demos, probably the worst possible demos that we could think of. All out of time, out of tune, and the corniest lyrics. And just, I wish I had those demos that we sent to the label. It would be a riot to have. I don't know, they're long gone though, 42, 43 years ago. It's ancient history. But anyway, they listened to them and they went, "Okay, you're released." And so our ploy worked. That was lucky. And I mean, we didn't have a label. Then we had to start shopping for a label. And that took us a good year to shopping for labels. But in the meantime, we kept auditioning bass players and drummers. And Doug Johnson, Doug and I were actually working together before I met Mike. And he played some parts on my demos, my solo demos. And he was in a band called Foster Child. And so it took Doug a little bit of persuading for him to leave Foster Child, and oh no, was that Foster Child? I think it was, yeah. Or I can't remember. Anyway, so the three of us moved out to Vancouver together because our manager at the time, Lou Blair, the late great Lou Blair, one of my best friends forever, he wisely brought in Bruce Allen. He thought Bruce could really do a number for us. So, and on his advice, Mike and Doug and I, we moved to Vancouver from Calgary, and got our houses, or not our apartments out here in Vancouver, and continued to rehearse. And we had Brian McLeod was a drummer for a while in the band. Too Loud McLeod, one of the coolest guys ever on the planet, and he was our drummer. But he decided that he wanted to play guitar. And rightly so. So he went back to Headpins and that. But we had some really, really great times in rehearsal with Brian McLeod.
Absolutely. And what? Go ahead.
And then Matt left Streetheart, and so we coaxed Matt into joining the band, and I'm pretty sure that we had Scott on board, but right around that same time. We met Scott. I heard that of this bass player that was playing with Lisa Del Bello, and Mike and I went up to see them. They were playing in the summer of probably of 77, somewhere around there, 78. I get kind of confused back then. I mean, come on, man, it's more than 40 years.
I hear you, man. I can't remember stuff from way back then either. I'm right on board with you on that one.
So anyway, Mike and I went up to Red Deer, Alberta, and this is before. Yeah, so we must have hooked up with Scott before we went to Vancouver. So and we were blown away by his stage presence and his feel and his sound. He was the real deal. He was the full package as a bass player. And I just as a side note, I remember I talked to him, or somehow we got him to come to Calgary to hook up with us, with Mike and me and Doug.
Cool.
And I remember meeting him, picking him up. I picked him up at the airport, and first time I met him, it was like Scott was the kind of guy. He was like your instant brother. He was like, I've known this guy my whole life. He's so natural, so easygoing. It just fell together, just on a personal level. Excuse me, not to mention a musical level, but on a personal level, it was immediate. It was just that kind of guy, you know.
You just know. When it happens, you just know. Just a great story of how Loverboy formed, and again, what an amazing career you guys have all had, and it's just it's mind-boggling that I can drive my truck every day. If I'm in the truck for an hour or so, you're going to hear a Loverboy song. So congratulations to you guys for that as well. Paul, let me read you. Go ahead.
There's just one thing I got to warn people about. You know that what they say about drinking and driving? What's the same thing about listening to Loverboy and driving? Because if you listen to Loverboy when you're driving, for about 2 minutes, you're going to look down and you're going to see your speedometer is 20 miles over the legal limit. So be very careful.
Definitely.
I say that because I would be putting the albums together, we'd be mixing them, and then we would sequence them and trying different sequences. And I'd be driving along, checking it out on my car stereo, cranked, the bottom end shaking the rear view mirror, just really digging it. And then I'd look down at my speedometer. If there wasn't a cop on my tail, anyway, you get the picture.
I get the picture. A high energy rock band, and all you guys fit together so well to make that happen. Paul, let me read you a few emails real quick. This one's from Doug Robertson. Doug Robertson's from the band Roller Coaster with Angel Ritchie, who's a drummer. She's an amazing drummer. And Mike Hayes, who's an amazing singer and bass player. Doug just wants to say hi to you. That's Doug Robertson.
All right. I've never met you, Doug, but thanks for listening. I appreciate the support, and I'd like to know what kind of music you guys play.
Yeah, they play probably a Loverboy song. They're a top 40 rock band that play around town. Well, right now they're not, but they're all just fabulous musicians. So, absolutely. Here's one from. Thanks for that email, Doug. Here's one from Darlene. Hello, always loved Paul's work with Loverboy and his solo stuff. He's such a talented guitar player. And what is your favorite guitar to play, and what amp do you use?
Oh, that's funny, man. I made, as I was saying earlier, I made my first bass. It was electric bass back in the day. And the whole idea was the teacher said, the instructor said, if it works, you pass. And so I luckily I passed. But so the bug stayed with me for a long time. And back in the early 80s, I designed my own guitar. And that is my favorite guitar. There's no doubt about it. And I had 50 of them made initially on Odyssey. And there's a rumor has it that there may be more of those on the market soon. So keep your eyes peeled about that. I'm supposed to keep it quiet, but I mean, it could be a while. It could happen. We'll see what happens. But I've recorded all the original first couple of albums, 2-3 albums. I had a high watt that I bought in Toronto, and it was hot rodded in Toronto. There was a tech working there, and he increased the distortion level of it. And I heard it at a music store in downtown Toronto when I was in street art, and I bought it on the spot. It was whatever, it was $500, but it was the most amazing amp. I don't have it anymore. It probably got toasted in a flood, I believe. I lost a lot of equipment in 2005. There's a flood in my basement in our whole neighborhood. The river backed up, and it was ugly, man. It was horrible. But anyway, that's what. So, but now I use. I've been using a Marshall 50 watt JCM 900, which works great. But you know what? What I was using just before we shut it down, I tried it for 3 shows, and it was unbelievable. And what I'm using now, you're not going to believe it. It's a Line 6 HX Stomp. It's a little box. It's like a $700 box. That's got so many sounds and all these effects. But I use that as the amp sound, and then I have an effects rack that I use in conjunction with that. But that is basically, it's my sound, and it sounds so close. And the thing with amplifiers, especially when you're traveling, you put them on the plane and they get scrunched. I think some of the baggage handlers take great delight in going, this is an amplifier. Let's see how high it'll bounce.
Absolutely. So this board that you have, you go directly through the PA with it then, right? It's like a Boss GT10 kind of idea?
Yep. It sounds incredible. Well, it has a bunch of outs, so I take a line out to the monitor board, and then that goes to everybody else in the band, and that line also goes out to the front of the house. But I also there's a line out that I have Marshall set up behind, and I stick it in the power amp input, and so that I have some speaker sound, so I can get sustain.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, there was one gig that we played a couple of years back. There was 5 Marshalls that they showed up with, and every one of them didn't work. I plug it in 5 minutes later, and I'm not insane.
You were blowing them up.
Well, but they shouldn't have been blown up, because a lot of times they don't blow up, but a lot of times they get weaker as the night progresses. So after an hour and a half of wailing, especially outside, if it's like 100 above or whatever, and by the end of the set, the amp is starting to die. But with this new box, it's consistent every night. It sounds exactly the same every night. And,
that's amazing.
And at the end of the set, as it does at the beginning of the set, so that its consistency is so much better. That said, who knows? I mean, I only used it 3 times, literally 3 times before we had to call it in March.
Right. I'm sure you'll get back to using it for sure. Sorry, Paul. Yes, so here's an email from Janice. I don't like to turn away emails. You may want to talk about this, you may not, but like I say, I don't want to turn away any emails, so let me read this to you. Hello, may God rest Scott Smith's soul. If Paul does not mind talking about Scott, how did the band relate to the awful tragedy?
Yeah, that was something. It didn't hit me full on until his service that we had at a church out near where he lived in Maple Ridge, BC here. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was really heavy, but for Mike, it hit him like a ton of bricks. He was dead, because they were best buddies. They were inseparable, those 2 guys, everywhere, all the time. And
right.
And Scott was such a great guy. He was a real diplomat. If there's any kind of tension in the band, Scott would come in with a few words of wisdom and just cool everybody out. He's really great that way. Always had a sense of humor, and a big-hearted guy. He was a baseball coach in his hometown, Maple Ridge, for a long time. And I mean, we were all really devastated. But as I say, it finally hit me at the service, and that's when I lost it. But I was pretty stoic up until that point. But but with Mike, I mean, Mike hired hired a helicopter and got word out to the Coast Guard. It was just south of the what the heck's that? The massive bridge in San Francisco. I guess Scott had just gone under the bridge, and he and a couple of friends were heading down the coast. He was taking his sailboat down to I think to Cabo. He wanted to park down there for the winter, and it wasn't that far to go, just down the coast of California. But he got just around the corner, and there's, I guess it's a major place where a lot of surfers go because the waves are gargantuan, 100-foot waves or something. And I guess Scott, he ran into one of those.
Wow.
And the wave, from what we understand, he was lashed to the what do you call that big wheel that they turn? He was lashed to that, and I guess the wave took him and the steering wheel. I'm sorry, that's not a very nautical term, but took him and
so like the undertow kind of.
And that it washed him overboard when the wave hit.
Yep.
It's somewhere beyond 25 foot wave hit and took him and the steering thing overboard. And
wow.
Unfortunately, and Mike, not personally, but well, maybe he was there. I don't know, but he had the Coast Guard and helicopters searching up and down the coast and trying to find his body. But never to be found.
Very, very sad.
It was very sad.
Paul, Catherine asks, now I know this is quite an achievement. In 1982, you won Composer of the Year along with Mike for writing Turn Me Loose, man, a Juno Award. But so Catherine's asking me, hello, what was it like in 1982, Paul winning the Composer of the Year Award at the Junos? Let's talk about that, because that's just so impressive.
I hate to blow my horn, but we won 6 Junos that night. Unbelievable! It's never been done before or since. So I'm super proud of that. It's a long time ago. It was 82, and the composer was very cool. I mean, I can't remember what the last one was. It was probably that one. No, it would have been Album of the Year. That was the last one. But we'd won 5 already. I think I went on before the telecast, and they had Producer of the Year, and Bruce Fairbairn and I won that in conjunction. Mm-hmm. And so that was a huge honor for me, a huge achievement for me personally, because it was obviously to do with Loverboy, but it was more with me and Bruce more than it was me and Mike and Matt and Doug and Scott, right?
Sure.
So it was pretty cool for me, but I remember we're sitting in the audience, and we've won 5 Junos, and we're going, okay, that's it, that's got to be it. So I remember one of us, probably me, we wanted to get up and use the washroom, and one of the what do you call them? The maitre d's, I guess you'd call them, saw us getting up to leave the room, and he says, you might not want to leave right now. You might want to just sit down and wait just for a little bit more.
So he knew something you didn't.
He did. He had the list of winners, and so we sat down and it went up for the 6th time to get our award. So it was pretty special. And I remember writing "Turn Me Loose." I'll give you a little story on that. We would jam. We would be auditioning bass players and that. So we had a bass rig set up. And one night, I think I might have been playing drums. But no, it was somebody. We were auditioning a drummer, and we didn't have a bass player. So Mike picked up the bass, as he always did. He always would play the same riff. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, 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 doom. And I'm going, oh, God, here we go. Not this again. So
cool.
So we're jamming. Oh, I know what it was. So Mike was playing drums, and we must have had a guitar player just jamming or something. So I picked up the bass, and we started jamming, and Mike started playing the groove to Turn Me Loose. And what do I do? Because it's been pounded into my head all these months. The first thing that comes to my mind is doom, 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 doom. We went. And I remember, so that was the beginning of the tune. It actually became a song, started to become a song that we had a bass and drums and a groove going. But I remember as we were working on the lyrics. And Mike and I had gone through a lot of bands and a lot of managers at the time. And we were fed up with being, working for other people. We wanted to do it our way or no way at all, right? But I remember literally, I was singing it. I was playing guitar. I don't know who was playing bass and drums, but I was singing it. We were working on the lyrics. And I remember looking at Lou Blair, our manager, was standing in the room, just hanging out. And I remember looking him in the eye and said, "Got to do it my way or no way at all," and being really pointed about it. And it was not a threat to Lou. It was more of a promise, Like we're not going to be led astray by anybody. Lou, Mike, and I, we're going to do it our way, or we're not even going to do it. So there, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But it was like a spur of the moment thing. It just came from, who knows where that line came from. Going to do it my way or no way at all. Mofo kind of thing,
And you know what? I can, for me, and I bet you I speak for an awful lot of bass players and guitar players, that it's one of the first riffs that I've learned how to play on guitar. One was the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire. There, near. But
wow,
turn
Johnny
me
Cash.
loose. Go ahead.
That's insane. That's the same guitar player that played that was influenced my absolute bottom root. Was that guitar player, the same guy that influenced me, Luther Perkins. Unbelievable.
And so that Folsom Prison was definitely one of the first riffs that I learned, but so was Turn Me Loose, man, because it's just got that groove, like it attracts you right away. And then to play it on the guitar for the first or second time and learn how to play it is just remarkable. And I know I speak for an awful lot of musicians out there that was one of their first riffs that they learned on the guitar as well.
You didn't learn.
Sorry, go ahead.
Down.
Of course, that was one as well. Of course, that was one.
That's got to be every guy who works along a McQuaid's biggest nightmare when a kid comes in and plays that again.
Absolutely. Smoke on the water, for sure. I know we want to play another song. I got another couple questions I want to ask you. If it's okay with the producer, Gary, and it's okay with you, Paul, I'm hoping maybe we could go a little later, fellas. Does that work for both of you?
That works for us. Yep.
You bet.
Awesome. So many great stories. And so I look forward to continue talking with you. But before we do, let's play Some Like It Hot, which is another Loverboy song. And then we'll come back and I want to talk about why you picked that song as well, Paul.
Okay.
Like I say, there's a million Loverboy songs, but I'm interested to find out why you also picked Some Like It Hot. Folks, I have the amazing Paul Dean, Loverboy fame, Street Heart Man, Loverboy fame here on the show. He also has his own solo stuff, so check out Paul Dean on the internet. All you have to do is type in Paul Dean, Dean, and man, stuff's going to come up everywhere. So check him out. He's absolutely amazing, folks. Again, I have Paul Dean on the show this evening. We are going now to listen to a Loverboy song called Some Like It Hot on this House of Musicians radio show right here on Reality Radio 101.
I'll buy you less.
Hey, welcome back, folks. I have Paul Dean on the show tonight. We just listened to a Loverboy song called Some Like It Hot. Paul, touch on why you picked that song to play tonight.
You know, it's a tune. It's a pretty obscure song. You can listen to it on Spotify and Apple Music and all those, but it's never been sold as a single or anything. The only way you can actually, if you ever wanted to buy it, we released an album a few years back that we sell at our shows called Cream, and it's on there. It's got 3 new songs, that being one of them, and a different version of Strike Zone, which is one of my favorite tunes. I don't really know. I just really like the tune, and I think Mike sings it great, and I love the drumming in it, and if I once again I like the guitar. I think it sounds pretty cool. I like the tone I got, and it's just one of those. You know, I remember recording it as a demo at Mushroom Studios back in probably '79, before we had a deal, and I thought it was lost, because I looked everywhere for it. I thought it was maybe in some tapes were left at Mushroom, but I thought it was gone. But anyway, about 4 years ago, I guess it's more than that. Whatever, it was a long time ago now. I transferred I had all these 2-inch tapes that I carried around for basically 40 years, from town to town and warehouse to warehouse. And so I had them. I took all these tapes, had them transferred to digital. I did that in Calgary, and I got the tapes back, and I was just going through them, and they did a meticulous job of keeping notes on what all the tunes were, indexing everything. And I went through and I went, is that the Some Like It Hot one that I'm hoping it is? And sure enough, it was. So I brought it up on my computer and worked on it, and changed a few parts and cleaned it up and added some guitar, and it sounds pretty cool. So there you go.
Absolutely, yes, a great song. I just have an email here I want to read to you. I think it's why did I lose it? I think it's pretty important email. I think it's dear to your heart and dear to I know I told you that Doug Robertson wrote in. Boy, I can't find this email. I just had it open here a second ago. Go figure. But it's dear to, he's talking about his son. What the heck is going on here?
Another type 1 diabetes son?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go to this email from Claudette.
Well, you know what, Barry, I could read that for you.
Okay, please do, because emails go to you.
Sure. Okay, so it says, "Hey, Barry, what a story about Paul's son. I can really relate, having gone through cancer with my son for 5 years. He was 25 then, and still we chased him around for his injections, all the while still trying to learn tunes for the band on my quiet time. Great show, Barry. Paul, I'm loving all the history you bring tonight. Doug from Roller Coaster." And there you go.
That's in a twisted kind of way. That's kind of amusing, trying to chase your 25-year-old son around with an injection. That's it's not supposed to be funny, and I mean no disrespect. It's just it's unbelievable that would happen. But I know the feeling, because it would break our hearts with our 3-year-old son. You know, there's a line in "Give Me Back My Life," something about when the doctor says this won't hurt a bit. You know, and
right.
Yeah, right. It won't hurt you a bit, but it's going to hurt me a whole lot. You know. So I feel for the family, any family that has a sick kid. You know, it's brutal.
It sure is. Paul, how did you come up with the name Loverboy? Where'd that come from?
I wish I could think of another angle, but I'll give you the straight goods. I was in my apartment in Calgary. I was out of street art. I was working with Mike, and we were going to get some pictures taken and we needed to know the name of the band so that we could send some of our demos out. We're probably mailing out cassettes or to whatever it was in those days. And so there was a magazine sitting on the table, and it was a back cover up, and it had an ad for CoverGirl Cosmetics on it. One of my wife's magazines, and I'm going, CoverGirl, okay, Cover Boy. Oh, that's a pretty cool name for a band. I'm always thinking of band names, album titles, song titles, song lyrics. Not always, but you know what I mean. My mind keeps going there. I saw one last night. I put it into my phone. It says "Little Miss Stiletto." I thought, what a cool name for a song. Kind of like Prissy. Anyway, so the logical step from cover boy to Loverboy, and I went, oh, that works. I think that works. So
it worked.
Yeah. So because we were calling ourselves the Dean Reno Band or Reno Dean Band or whatever, and my girlfriend's son, or not son, her little brother said, I hear you in a band. Trying. He says, what's the name of your band? It says Dean Reno Band. I went, oh, okay. Anyway, he walks away like, whatever, the big whatever from my little kid, So I just started thinking, that doesn't fly. I got to get something that's got some impact. For better or for worse, a lot of people, it's like when the Beatles came out, I went, that's the weirdest name for a band I've ever heard. But then you forget about the name, and you associate the image and the music first, then the image and the stories and the history and everything. So Loverboy, it just becomes, it's like a stamp. It's like Kleenex, but there's Loverboy. You don't really think about what does it mean, what it means is working for the weekend to release and, touring.
Absolutely.
And goodwill and all that stuff,
It definitely worked. That's for sure. It's a great name for a band. Here's an email from Nancy, but it's a question I always like to ask too. This is from Nancy. Nancy asks, what is your favorite song to play on stage?
I think probably Take Me to the Top, because it's so dynamic. And I don't have to chug. Not that I'd mind chugging, but it's a nice break. I don't. For a guitar player, it's so dynamic with the wah-wah and the big solo and the breakdown in my favorite key to song, the open E.
Absolutely.
I don't know, and the groove too. And it's got a sax part in it, and I love to play that tune. Unfortunately, we don't get to play that tune every night because a lot of times we have an hour set if we're opening for somebody or whatever the reason being. We're doing a TV show or a radio show, and we've got to do a 45-minute set. So unfortunately, Take Me to the Top and It's Your Life and This Could Be the Night, which are also three of my favorites. Take Me to the Top wins by the slimmest of margins, because I really, truthfully love to play these tunes. And I don't know, that's what I live for. That's why I do what I do. That's why I go through airports and stay in hotels and be on the road for half my life, so that I can play these tunes for anywhere from 200 to 200,000. Yeah, well, that's never happened, but whatever the crowd is, if they're there to hear it, we're going to give it to them. No matter who the crowd is or where it is, we're going to play it like it's our last show, because who knows.
Absolutely, and it's amazing that you're talking about playing in front of how many people, because I'm going to read one more email from John. Now, I have a bunch of other emails, folks. I just can't get to them all, but I thank everybody very much for emailing in. But this one's from John, and John asked, he says, yo, all, what was the biggest crowd ever that Paul and Loverboy played in front of, and were you nervous? Secondly, any rituals to get ready for a gig backstage? So first of all, what's the biggest crowd you played for?
I would say probably the Coliseum in LA. Foreigner was headlining it, and Ozzy was next, like down the list. They went on second last. Ozzy went on second last. I think we were just before Ozzy, and Oh, I can't remember the other bands, but there was probably another 3 bands. But I believe there was 100,000 people there. The place was packed, and it's a big, big stadium.
Cool.
And a couple of interesting things happened. Ozzy was walking around backstage with his wig on. So everybody, all the audience, or everybody, all the crew, everybody in the bands, all the bands, there's Ozzy. Yeah, there's long-haired Ozzy. That was the night. Maybe he did this every night. I don't know. But on that show, that's the night that he pulled his wig off. And there he is in this shiny chrome dome. And everybody's going, what the hell? Me included.
That's awesome.
That was pretty insane. And also that show was an interesting thing for Reno. He slept in, missed the flight down. So our road manager, Doug Grover at the time, had to wake him up. And I'm sure Mike would love this story. He would laugh. Doug Grover had to wake him up. He was staying at a hotel in downtown Vancouver, and he hauled his ass out of bed, and they took a cargo plane to Seattle, and from Seattle they took a Learjet to LA.
Wow!
And from the airport to the gig, took a helicopter.
What?
To wherever he could land close enough, and then took a limo ride after that to get to the show. And he barely made. We were waiting. We waited for 20 minutes. There's 100,000 people out there, and there's our slot. And unfortunately, the promoters didn't make us cut our set. So we, as I recall, we went on and we did our full whatever it was, an hour, I guess, probably, being that there were so many bands. And I remember Reno saying, "No apologies." It's like, so you guys are going to pay for this, right? Look, I'm going, I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah. What an amazing story. Now, were you nervous?
No. Excited, you know. I don't get. It depends who. You know, if there's somebody in the audience that I know is there. Like if Jeff Beck came to see the band, I'd probably, choke. You know.
Right.
But I remember one time we were playing in Toronto. I think it was probably Street Heart, and Kim Mitchell came down, and I choked. It was unbelievable. And Kim and I, we go way back. We're good buds now, even then. But I don't know if you've heard his new album. It's a really, really cool album.
Wish. Yeah, it's called Wish. Or the song is Wish.
Yeah, it's a really
that he's promoting.
Good record. Yeah.
He's been around an awful long time. He's got so many great songs as well, Kim Mitchell. I haven't been fortunate enough to contact him to get him on the show. I've been trying all which ways I can, but that hasn't happened yet. But I'm going to keep trying. Secondly, Paul, is there some kind of ritual that you have before you go on stage, backstage?
Not really. No, we just get dressed and go on. I mean, the trick is to get to the venue and have everything go the way it's supposed to go, because the worst thing that can happen is you're frantic. You get to the venue and you get into the dressing room. You get on all your duds and you're all ready to go, and then the promoter wants to hold for 20 minutes, and so your adrenaline is drained, and then you got to. I mean, it's a first world problem. I mean, cry me a river, but that's a tough thing to do, because you know what the hardest thing about playing is coming down afterwards, is coming back to reality.
Yep.
Because we step into, well, you're there. You step into your bubble for 90 minutes or however long it is, and you stay in that bubble. You stay so tuned into what you're doing, concentrating on what you're doing, and then you come out of it at the end of the show, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm back to reality again. Oh, well, this is cool. You're looking around. Oh, we're in the backstage now. It's like waking up from a dream. It really is.
Absolutely natural high.
Yeah, you get yourself so deep into the groove of it, And some nights, speaking of groove, you get into this groove, and every song is like magic. And those nights, they stay with you for a long time. I would imagine it's the same for a fan, Like speaking of Jeff Beck, I've seen Jeff Beck play a few times. I saw him play with Jan Hammer once in Edmonton. That was pretty scary. But so whenever I see him play, or somebody that I really admire like that, and there's not that many, to be honest, but he's my favorite guitar player by far. And, I take it with me. I carried her on for a few days. It's like you carry the buzz with you, you know. And it's the same thing when Loverboy does a great show and every song just clicks and the bubble never bursts and you never lose your concentration and the fans are there and everything works, everything clicks. So the one 90-minute set made up of, I don't know, 12 to 15 tunes, whatever it is, it becomes one song and it's like one movement, fast, slow, soft, hard, mad, happy, sad, all the emotions, they flow through you, but it's like one song to me. It's a 90-minute presentation.
Just like a theater play, for sure. Just like a theater play. And the natural high that you get, I've had it a couple times, and I'm not talking about playing in front of thousands of people, but just everything clicks and you come off the stage and you're like on this high for an hour or so going, wow, that felt good. Paul, I have one more question for you. This is probably my favorite part of the show. I love to ask all the artists this. Tell me one crazy story that's happened to you on stage, backstage, on a tour bus, in a hotel room. Tell me something crazy.
Well, you know, it wasn't that crazy for me, but it was pretty crazy for the bands. We were playing in Japan in '82. We were playing in Tokyo in this theater. And the place is sold out. You know, it's maybe a 3,000-seater or something. It's not huge, but a real nice size. And the security is so strict that everybody can stand, but they have to stand by their seat. You can't stand on your seat. You can't stand in the aisle. God forbid you come up to the front of the stage and rock with the band. That's not going to happen, kids. You stand there. So, you know, and everybody's very polite. So we would finish a song, and normally in North America or Europe, you would play a song and you would get an applause. So we go, yeah, and then it would kind of fade out, and then it would be kind of still going, and then it would kind of fade out, and then it would be calm again, right? Well, in that show, we would finish the tune, and the applause would be go, yay! What? So we're standing there with our pants down around our knees, kind of thing, you know, going, "Oh, this is awkward." So, but you get used to it pretty fast, and no one warned us about it. But they said, you know, you got to do 2 encores, no matter what you feel like doing. You make sure that you have that your set list worked out, so you do 2 encores, and it's 2 songs per encore, no matter what. So it's the same thing. We finish I don't know, maybe we finished with The Kid Is Hot probably back then, and the same response. It's like, yay! In the meantime, we're still on stage. I still have my guitar, and we take our guitar off and stick it on the amp, and go back into the dressing room, and we we put it to our watches. Okay, it's for 30 seconds. I guess it's time we can go back on again. It's very strange, very strange. So we go back and it's exactly the same thing. We play to finish the second encore, and it's yay, and that's it. And we're going, oh my God, these poor kids, they have no life. They can't let loose. They can't rock with us or what?
Yeah, they're afraid.
So anyway, we get all ready. We're all ready to go back to the hotel, and we're all get changed into our street dress, and we walk out of the dressing room, and it's friggin' pandemonium outside. The kids are they're freaking out like normal, you know. So I'm going,
yeah.
God. So there is a God, you know. There is a rock God.
Absolutely.
That was one of the most bizarre things. And another.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's 3 gigs that come to mind. The other gig was in Germany. We were playing in I can't remember, maybe it was Dortmund or someplace, and it was a kind of what they call a velodrome. It was a circular wooden bicycle racetrack indoors, and it was all canted, you know, so it would be kind of like so you wouldn't run off the edge. It would anyway. And I just remember the crowd. It's never happened before. It's happened a couple times in Quebec. Quebecers are insane that way. They get really into it, and they start doing hockey chants in the middle of the set, and that's pretty moving. I love that. But these guys, all the guys in the audience, and it was probably 95% guys. It was like a metal concert, but we're not a metal band. We have metal influence, but we're not hardly a metal band. And we ended one of the tunes, and the whole audience going, Loverboy, Loverboy. And I went, whoa. So that was a really cool, because I'd never seen that before. Never felt the power of that. And that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, when you have. Go ahead.
And then the last one was, I mean, this all sounds like I'm bragging, but it's a wonder to me when these things happen. It's like amazing things that happen. And we played San Antonio once, and we came out of the hall in our limo, and it was at the height of our career. It was probably 85 or something, and we came out, and everybody was outside and climbing we couldn't drive because they were climbing on the limo, trying to get at us inside the limo. And I wasn't afraid. I was just like, this is rock and roll, man. This is how it should be, So very, very memorable moments. Oh, there's one other thing too. I gotta say, and this was really funny. Do you remember Hard Day's Night, the movie, when the band is constantly running from the fans? That happened to us once in Japan. For some reason, we got out of our car, and I remember just laughing because we were being chased down the street, just thinking about Hard Day's Night, We're being chased down the street by their fans. They wanted to just give us gifts. They're really
amazing.
They're very generous. A lot of people, a lot of the folks over there, and they love to just show their appreciation. So I like gifts.
Absolutely. And by no means, Paul, are you ever bragging whatsoever. You're an absolute rock star. I want to thank you personally for helping build a house that we all grew up in. Thank you for that. I mean, you can't go anywhere without hearing you playing guitar on the radio. You should be very proud of that. It's amazing to hear you guys. Mike Reno's voice is amazing. The whole band is fabulous. Let's not forget, too, now that Loverboy has their 40th anniversary of that album out right now on red vinyl, which I'm still trying to get my hands on. But they're hard to find, but I have been searching. Again, the 40th anniversary, how did that come to be, Paul?
I don't quite follow you.
You have the new 40th anniversary red vinyl LP out, right?
Oh, right. Actually, there's two. The first one is from the first album. That's the real 40th anniversary. And the Get Lucky album, it's also been released, but I'm not sure that it's a colored disc. It might be. I'm not. You might know better than me.
Yeah, it's a red vinyl. Yep.
Okay. All I know is it's, according to my manager, I don't have a record player, to be honest. I have a couple of copies of the first album that actually Bruce Allen sent me, which was kind of blew my mind because we're still really tight, Bruce and me, even though we're not working together as such. But apparently the heavier vinyl, you can get a more hi-fi playback on some systems. But, it's so many variables. I've heard, I'll tell you some interesting things. The variables, speaking of variables, I've seen some copies of the Scrubble Cane album online that people have recorded off their turntable, and their turntable's running really slow. So everything is tuned down a little bit, and it's a little bit feeling good on Sunday. So everything's a little bit slow, So I guess the only way to do it is make sure that your turntable is turning at 33 1/3 exactly, and you got a brand new cartridge and the most expensive equipment. It's like, who can hear that stuff? I sure can't, but
Paul, man, what can I say? You know what? You guys get back to touring. You come to Ontario. Shoot me a text so I can come and me and my wife, we're concert freaks. We'd love to get out and see you guys play. Just let me know if you get back to Ontario and you and the boys and do a concert or something. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been our honor. Much appreciated. And I'm going to follow your progress and see what you guys are doing and keep up with you. And we'll get you back on the show again one day.
You bet. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it, folks. I've had Paul Dean. Yes.
Are you guys in the same band, or are you in separate bands?
Separate bands.
Okay. Separate.
Okay.
So Gary's band is called Walker's K. Now, my band is not like it was a band for 10 years and we played live, but I got out of that scene. And now I just write songs at home and go in the studio and record them. That's basically all I do. But Gary's band, Walker's K, is doing really well. They were #1 on iTunes in South Africa, I believe.
Wow, that's very cool. Wow, wow. And I must put a shout out, a little reminder to everybody that not only are you a great DJ, but you're also a fantastic roofer, apparently.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Been doing it for 31 years, so yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes, thank you for that.
right.
Paul, again, our pleasure to have you. Like I say, I'm going to keep following the progress, contact you once in a while and say hi. And what we'll do is we'll get you back on the show down the road. Thank you for being our guest tonight. It's much appreciated.
All right, Barry, Gary, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And to the listener, I say thank you for being here, and always dance and sing. Let the music bring your soul to the surface for all the world to see. Until next time, have a shuffle your feet kind of week, and good night. You've been listening to This House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101.